Welcome back to Breakdown, September 11th, 2023. It's Monday, JJ.
Yes, sir.
Big Ten SEC. Let's break it down. A lot of things happened in week 2.
Yeah, little less happening in week 3, but we're still going to break it down for you.
Okay, week 2, the big one in week 2. Texas went into Alabama.
They went into the heart of Tuscaloosa.
And what happened?
Well, what normally happens when an out-of-conference foe goes into Tuscaloosa to face the Nick Saban coach Alabama team, Dad?
Hey, I feel, typically you feel sorry for that team that walks into Tuscaloosa.
Well, you won't be feeling sorry for them this time because Texas walked out victorious. They pretty much dominated Alabama. They looked like they had explosion and places that I'm not used to seeing Texas players have that at. Like at the perimeter, Texas hadn't had that in a while.
Question: is Texas that good, or is Alabama not what we thought they were?
I think the answer to that might be yes. I think there's a lot been made about is Texas back or not. I think Texas might be back.
Okay. Well, what about the dynasty? Alabama, how many rings Nick got?
Yeah, he's got a lot. He has a lot, but
will he get one this year?
Well, no, he ain't getting one this year. Jalen Milroe is not going to lead him to his next title. I don't believe. Not this year. I think I believe in the development. People can always get better, and I'm not going to put a ceiling on his potential.
Okay.
But from what I saw in this most recent game, I don't think it's happening this season. Not with their schedule. Not.
Okay. Well, next year Texas is a conference game.
Texas will be a conference game next year.
You know what? And I didn't look at the next year's schedule. The next year's schedule is out, and I'm almost 101% sure that Alabama plays them next year. But
yeah, I'm sure that
I'm not quite 101, but I'm pretty sure that they're on the schedule. Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No.
Okay, well, that was anything else about that Alabama Texas game that stood out to you?
Well, Quinn Ewers looked pretty good. He looked pretty precise. In contrast to Jalen Milroe, he looked like he knew what he was seeing from Alabama's defense. We're not used to Alabama's corners being. Their secondary was somewhat dominated in a way that we're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I agree. Give me a grade for Milroe.
Man, I have to give him at best a C-. I mean, he showed flashes, but. Yeah. They were too far and few in between,
I don't know if I would be that hard on him myself.
I mean, he threw the deep ball well. He would do the scramble play and then throw. He would find somebody like after the pocket broke down, but he wasn't comfortable sitting in the pocket and reading and delivering the ball on time to where it needed to be.
Okay, so what about Alabama's defense?
I mean, their defensive backs were kind of getting toasted.
That's what we had said earlier, and I agree with you on that.
So that's not something that you're used to seeing. The lack of Will Anderson was definitely felt. They didn't have a guy. It's funny because they showed like shots of like Marcel Darius was on the sidelines and former Alabama defensive linemen that they could have absolutely used in the game to get more pressure on Quinn Ewers, but they weren't able to achieve it.
The over and under for Alabama this year is 10.5. If you took the over, are you happy? Are you afraid? I know you're not happy right now, but are you worried?
Absolutely.
You're worried.
Absolutely worried because Alabama was favored to beat Texas in this game.
They were.
And so that was part of their season-long over or under like that. And so now they're going to have to win a game that Vegas wasn't expecting them to have won. They
got to go to Mississippi State, go to Texas A&M. They get Arkansas at home. That's going to be the toughie. And they get Tennessee at home. That's going to be the toughie. They get LSU at home.
Well, luckily for them, Tennessee hasn't looked as great.
Okay, but you say you should be worried. Okay, JJ, let's stick with one more game in the SEC.
Yeah.
Texas A&M went to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
What happened in Miami?
Well, as of late, what happens to Jimbo Fisher when he plays a ranked team?
Well, Jimbo Fisher got Bobby
Petrino. Petrino, but Bobby Petrino was not his savior. And it wasn't even the offense necessarily that was the biggest issue. The defense gave up 40-some points in Miami.
Yeah.
It was not good. Tyler Van Dyke looked incredible. He was the only Miami quarterback since Ken Dorsey to throw for, I think, 5 touchdowns against a quote-unquote ranked team. Texas A&M, is not ranked anymore, but they were ranked in the top 25.
So, JJ.
They look like they're overrated again. All the potential in the world, but
Jimbo got a pretty nice salary contract down at Texas A&M. Is this seat hot?
absolutely. If Texas A&M has the oil money that they say that they have, I see no reason why Jimbo Fisher his services would be requested for the 2024 season.
Can you compare Jimbo to their previous coach?
They're very similar in that.
They've all, after 61 games, how are they doing?
Well, you tell me how are they doing after 61 games, Dad?
Kevin Sumlin is 3 games better than Jimbo Fisher.
He is.
So, with that being the case, and Sumlin got fired.
Yeah, he didn't get too many more games after 61. So if Jimbo Fisher doesn't turn that ship around, what do you think will happen?
Man, that's a lot of money to give up to someone to sit home.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like you say, A&M is supposed to have that all money, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, let's move to the Big Ten.
Let's pivot to the Big Ten. Let's do it.
To me, there was a really interesting game, a big game, played local time, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, sir. The classic Big Ten Pac-12 rivalry, Colorado and Nebraska, the heated rivals that just screams Big Ten and Pac-12. That's what I think of when I think of those two schools.
Well, it was Colorado went into that game a 3-point favorite.
They were a 3-point favorite, which normally means because they were the home team, that Vegas thinks that they're about even.
Okay.
So normally you would expect like an evenly played game, with Colorado pulling out in the end because of the home field advantage. So did that play out last week?
You know something? Coach Prime got himself a team. He has himself a quarterback. He has himself
an offensive coordinator.
Exactly. He has himself a team.
A 2-way star. And Travis Hunter.
Talk to me about Mr. Hunter, JJ.
I mean, he would be the, leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy on his team if it wasn't for his quarterback. But he's a guy that played. I don't know how many snaps he played this past week. I know he played 129.
Way too many this week.
But he didn't need to. After the third quarter, it was pretty obvious what the outcome of that game was going to be. He didn't need to, but maybe he just wasn't feeling tired. But he was dominant, and in the second half, I mean, what was the score at halftime? It was
decent at halftime.
It was a close game. It was like a 7-point game or less. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a runaway in the second half. I mean, it was like 40-something to 14, and it wasn't even that close. I think Nebraska scored a garbage time touchdown to make the score look a little more competitive than it was. But Jeff Sims turned the ball over. Nebraska's quarterback, he turned the ball over. He fumbled it. He threw a pick. He fumbled it again. He's a turnover machine at this point in time, and the wide receivers couldn't get open.
At halftime, it was 13-0.
Oh, it was 13-0. So
at half.
So Nebraska didn't look good, but it wasn't as bad as the 36-14.
The final score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was 13-7 because I think Nebraska, Jeff Sims ran for that 57-yard touchdown to narrow the gap. So it was at one point in time it was competitive in the third quarter, but then by the end of it,
Nebraska's 0-2 to start the year off.
Yeah, I mean, and it was they had a close loss against Minnesota.
Very close.
Kicked the field goal.
Loss, yeah.
Yeah, to win at Minnesota. But we don't know how bad of a loss this is. This was at Colorado at 10 o'clock in the morning for Colorado, 11 in the morning for Nebraska. But they played it in altitude, and it's still early, but it was not an encouraging game for if you're a big Nebraska fan.
Well, let me ask you this, JJ. Is Colorado for real?
I mean, Colorado has issues. I think they have issues run blocking.
Okay.
They can pass protect a little bit. I think they have dynamic playmakers. I think they have legit receivers. I think Deion really attacked the transfer portal.
They have a very tough Pac-12 schedule.
They have a very tough schedule. I mean, after Colorado State, they get Oregon, and after Oregon, they get USC. So Colorado, we'll see if they're legit.
And I know they get Oregon State. Oregon State is ranked right now. I think, do they get Oregon or not? I don't know. I'm not
They
sure
get Oregon after Colorado State. They get Oregon's their fourth game.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I mean Washington. That's the team I was trying to think
Washington.
of.
I'm not entirely sure.
But regardless, they started out with TCU, starting Nebraska. I think they are legit. Man, Colorado's AD has made the hire probably of my lifetime as when it comes to football coaching.
Yeah, there's a reason he was hugging Deion for so long after that win against TCU. Because he went out on a limb to hire him. They didn't have the money. They said he committed $27 million to Deion before he had the money to pay it. And he counted on his boosters to raise that money, and they did it. And now look at them. They're getting College Game Day, ESPN.
Next week.
They're playing Colorado State, who's
Colorado
not good.
Colorado State. Is that game day worthy?
It is if you have Deion, apparently.
Okay.
It's prime time. They put that at 10 o'clock Eastern. It's a prime time game. They're getting College Game Day. They won one game last year, and now they have two legitimate Heisman candidates.
Tracy, let's pivot on, talk about a couple of week 3 games, and then we're going to talk about the fiasco that's happening at Michigan State. But let's talk about a couple of week 3 games. I want to start off with my favorite school, BYU, coming to Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah, you're a huge BYU Cougar fan. We all know it.
Hey, go Cougs. Go back to Utah
Provo.
with a loss.
Send them back to Provo.
Okay.
Well, they are 9.5-point underdogs to Arkansas.
Okay. I like that, but they got to put on the field, though. They got to play it.
Yeah.
Would you give it or would you take it?
I don't know. Arkansas honestly didn't look too impressive against Kent State last week. But they didn't have Rocket Sanders, arguably their best player.
Okay.
So they didn't have him. But I don't think BYU looked great either. I think they might have played Southern Utah. They didn't really look great against them. And
these 2 teams played last year.
They did play last year, and
Arkansas won conventionally. BYU actually put up a lot of yards against Arkansas.
They had Jaron Hall, a quarterback who's now playing for the Vikings, who was a 4th-round draft pick, who was, he threw for about 300-some yards against Arkansas. I do not believe his successor is going to have the success that he did.
Well, the thing that stood out me in last year's game was that BYU's inability to stop any aspect of Arkansas game, and I really don't think they're going to have that this year. I hope I'm right.
Yeah, they looked surprisingly unathletic when you compare that to a normal SEC game Arkansas would have to play against.
So we both getting. I'm taking Arkansas to win. I don't want to put words.
Of course, I'm taking the Arkansas to win. Okay. But they cover the 9.5.
I'm laying the 9.5.
I think I might. I'm probably not going to be as enthusiastic about it as him. But
I'm not going to sell my house.
Yeah, we'll see.
One other SEC team before we move on to the Big Ten. Tennessee going into Tallahassee.
Yeah, the reason this is going to be highlighted is because Tennessee had all these expectations entering the season, but
high-powered offense.
But their offense has not lived up to those.
They're 2-0.
They're 2-0, but they have dropped in the AP poll because people that watch them games, they watched them struggle last week before pulling away in the second half. Their offense does not look dynamic. It does not look the same as when Hendon Hooker was operating it.
Tennessee is a road favorite.
But they are a road favorite in the Swamp, and this is a big game for Billy Napier. If he doesn't win this game
at Florida,
he I think is officially on the hot seat. So this is a big game for him. He's gonna have the motivation to come out and do whatever they can to win. It's in the Swamp.
6.5?
6.5 point road favorites. That's a tough one.
I would give those 6.5. Florida to me has been even less impressive than Tennessee.
I'm gonna take Florida. I think that they're desperate. I think that they need it more. So I'm gonna take Florida.
Well, let's go to the Midwest.
Let's go to the Midwest.
And out of conference game, Minnesota
Minnesota.
They get to go to North Carolina
They're heading to the East Coast, and they're 7.5 point underdogs in
against,
Chapel Hill,
yeah.
in North Carolina. Tar Heels. Drake May,
Jake
Mac
May has been
Brown.
playing very good quarterbacking for North Carolina.
Yeah, Luke's little brother has been balling out for North Carolina.
Very
But they did struggle against Appalachian State last week for the second year in a row.
Well, when you mention Appalachian State, the first thing that comes to my mind is maize and blue, but we won't go there. But they did beat Appalachian State. So the 7.5 points Minnesota is getting.
Mm-hmm.
You taking those 7.5?
Yeah, I think I'm not gonna do that. I think I'm gonna take UNC to cover. I think that this is the type of team that Minnesota will struggle against. I think they can throw the ball, but I think North Carolina can also run the ball. I think Minnesota's a comparable team to South Carolina.
Okay.
And if you saw what happened when North Carolina did to South Carolina, I think coming off what happened against Appalachian State, I think North Carolina will have the proper motivation to come out and look well against a team that went 9 games last year.
Big Ten against the ACC. ACC is giving 7.5. We're both taking the ACC to win that, with North Carolina to beat Minnesota. JJ, there's another Big Ten ACC matchup.
Yeah, this one is interesting because Rutgers is
at home,
and they're favored against Virginia Tech, a team with a storied history. They're almost a touchdown favorite. They're
6.5 points.
Yeah, 6.5 points.
What makes this game so interesting?
Greg Schiano has taken Rutgers to a 2-0 record, and they've looked pretty impressive this year in doing so. So they're favored to go 3-0. I think this might be a turning point in the Rutgers program. We'll see.
Okay.
But I think
so. You're taking Rutgers to win it.
Yeah,
it's going to be a turning point.
I think these are two programs going in opposite directions. I think Virginia Tech.
I agree with you.
Is on the way down, and I think Rutgers is on the way up.
So let's talk about something that's close to home. Here where we are, here in Lansing. Let's go to East Lansing and talk Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker has a sexual harassment complaint filed against him. How's things looking for Michigan State?
Yeah, so I guess Michigan State isn't. I guess this isn't foreign territory for them. They've had sexual misconduct complaints levied their way with Larry Nassar before, and with Mark D'Antonio, at the end of his run, there was a few, I think 7 or 8 of his players that had sexual misconduct allegations levied against them. So this is a lot for a program that's had that happen to them in their history, and but we don't know the degree to which it's.
That's true. There is a formal hearing scheduled for October 5th and 6th to determine whether or not the school's sexual harassment policy has been violated. And a lot of that stuff didn't come out. The only time it came out, as the athletic director for Michigan State said during the news conference, he only found out some of the details a few hours prior to that news conference when the person who filed the complaint shared with USA Today some of the details. That's when Michigan State found out more of the details, because they did not know. Those things are kept under wrap until a formal hearing is done. So based on what did come out, though, it's tough. But that was just one side of it, and the whole story hasn't come out. So I want to wait and see the whole story before I actually throw in my 2 cents into the ring.
Yeah, there's a lot of details. I know ESPN filed a Freedom of Information Act to try to get some information from it, and they had their claim denied. But then Outkick had some information where apparently Brenda Tracy, the sexual assault advocate who goes around from campus to campus, trying to advocate for allies and men being allies for women in that space. They reported that they had 27 calls and they averaged 30 minutes, So like I don't I mean and
And-
Mel Tucker is made a vehement he made a vehement statement in his defense that
Okay.
that everything was consensual. So I mean we don't know anything at this point, but we do know that it's a controversy that will probably end Mel Tucker's time as Michigan State's head football coach.
I tend to agree with you there. The one call that really stands out that's in the complaint is the April 28th, 2022 call. And then she filed the complaint in December 2022. So more information will come out October 5th and 6th. JJ,
Yeah.
you alluded to that this being maybe the end of the road at Michigan State for Tucker. Who are some potential coaching candidates? Do you want to hit on that?
Yeah, we can just quickly here hit on a few of the potential names that have been thrown about and just some people that I think would be a good succession plan for Michigan State.
Okay.
Well, I think a lot of people say Pat Narduzzi at Pitt. They saw each other in the
I forget about him. He's
Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl recently.
an ex-Michigan State.
Yeah, he knows his way around East
defensive
Lansing.
coordinator.
He was the defensive coordinator under Mark D'Antonio.
Yeah.
Pitt's been up and down, but he's very familiar with Michigan State, East Lansing. He might be a logical successor. People might, feel attachment to the
Would
Mark
he leave
D'Antonio.
Pitt to come to Michigan State?
Yeah, Pitt is an ACC program. I think at this point in time, you're going to see a lot more separation between the Big Two conferences and everybody else because of the money.
Okay.
Who's
some other coaches though?
Okay, so if not Pat Narduzzi, another guy that's familiar with the Midwest would be Matt Campbell out of Iowa State. He's pretty much taken them to their. I mean, I know they just lost by 7 to Iowa, but they're Iowa State. It's kind of hard. I think he's maxed out that program. I think it's kind of hard to expect a lot more from him, from what he's done there, and he has taken them, to like 9-win and 10-win seasons.
So we got Narduzzi
and Matt Campbell.
And Campbell. Are there any others?
So Matt Campbell's from Ohio. Another guy from Ohio is Mark Stoops out of Kentucky.
Coming to Michigan State. Go ahead.
I think they're comparable jobs. I think Michigan State's obviously a better program. They've made it to the playoff. But they're comparable jobs. Michigan State's not one of the 5 best jobs in the Big Ten.
I can see him leaving unless he got a boatload of money.
He's from Ohio, and it could be for the boatload of money.
Okay.
But I think, at some point in time, you just don't want to be complacent. I think after he established himself as the best coach, in the modern era at Kentucky, since Paul Bear Bryant, I don't know what else he has to accomplish.
Well,
I mean, he's had a couple of 10-win seasons. What else can you do at Kentucky?
You can do more.
Well, if the fan base is I mean, I know he's made a boatload of money in the bourbon game. If the fan base is fine and complacent, I don't think he leaves. But if you ever, if they win 6-7 games this year, and I don't think his seat would ever get hot because of what he's done for that program.
Okay.
But I could see him.
Well, he made it clear that it's not a basketball school.
Yeah, I get. Yeah.
But JJ, there's a guy that I've been waiting to hear you call, and I haven't heard his name mentioned.
Mike Elko from Duke.
Nope. Although that is a good one.
Chris Kleiman from Kansas State.
That's another good one.
What about Jonathan Smith from Oregon State? Do you think he'd leave his alma mater? Is that the guy you're talking about?
Nope.
I think you must be talking about Sean Lewis from Colorado, the OC.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think he's a popular pick for a lot of Michigan State people. You see what he's done in Colorado's offense,
And what he did at Kent State.
Yeah. He's taken them to the heights that they hadn't really seen ever before. So he was like probably the best coach in Kent State history. He is very familiar with the Midwest. Kent State, the MAC is the Big Ten Junior. So he's been a head coach. He's shown already just in 2 games at Colorado what he can do. I mean, Deion Sanders' son Shador is averaging 450 yards a game passing, and
that's not bad.
That's not bad. And he's the maestro. He's the orchestrator of that offense. So, you know what? I think that's the favorite. I think.
Okay, that would be my top pick right now.
Yeah,
that would be my top pick. But JJ,
yeah,
I think we over.
That's it for this week.
Okay, then all we gotta do is say those magic words, those 3 magic letters, and then those words.
Yeah.
WPS. Woo Pig Sooie.
Uh,
And then you got 2 words out there. What are those 2 words?
well, I guess the answer to my question, who they, we know that the answer is the Browns this week.
All right, we out of here, people. Come back, give us a like on that. Hit the like button. Come back next week. We're going to give you some more breakdown. Peace.